These are the 5 reasons why I believe the Miami Heat could be legitimate title contenders this season. The first reason being that Bam Adebayo has added to his game. We all know that Bam Adebayo is one of the best offensive players in basketball, but just how good is he actually? Crafted NBA has the answers, as he ranks in the 99th percentile as an overall defender, and that's due to his elite defensive rebounding in the 97th percentile, his great rim defense in the 81st percentile, and his 78th percentile rating for block percentage. However, when Bam first came into the league, it was his offense that was lacking behind, but Bam would eventually add the mid-range jumper to his game, which instantly changed his player profile and earned him a starting spot. But now, Bam has made another ginormous leap. Over the last month of last season, Bam started putting up threes, as he shot 50% from deep on 1.5 attempts per game, and over the offseason with Team USA, he continued that shooting form, which has led him to now. In the Heat's first preseason game against Charlotte, he finished with 13 points, 6 rebounds, 1 steal, shooting 55% shooting from the floor, and most impressively, Bam made 2 out of 5 of his shots from downtown. 5 attempts is the most Bam has ever put up in an NBA game, and he did this in only 16 minutes of play. Now, yes, I know it's the preseason, and he was probably testing this ability more than anything, but he sure did look comfortable stepping into these looks. If Bam is making 3-pointers at a decent rate this season, this instantly changes his player profile once again, because now how do you game plan against this guy? He's going to clamp up your best big man on one end and score at all 3 levels on the other. All of a sudden, Bam Adebayo has found himself in rare territory for a defensive big man. And if he's all of a sudden an elite 2-way player, the Miami Heat might just find themselves in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. The second reason why the Heat are title contenders is because of a contract year for Jimmy Butler. After a tough year for Jimmy last season because of injuries and the death of his father, he didn't play up to standards. Butler, like Bam, was always a defensive first guy, but every season he just seems to get better offensively, now adding somewhat of a consistent 3-ball. Jimmy will usually take his threes from the corner, as last season he was great, making 47% from the right corner and 41% from the left, which is elite. But if he too can shoot more 3-pointers, this could completely change the outlook for this Miami Heat team. As of last season, they relied heavily on Duncan Robinson for 3-point shooting, as they rank 18th in the league for 3-point attempts per game. But if the Heat can make it a team effort to shoot more triples, this could potentially get them back to the postseason, as back in 2022, the Heat were the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference and shot the 14th most threes in the NBA. But overall, we're talking about the contract year for Jimmy Butler. We all know the difference between postseason and regular season play from Jimmy Butler, but now that he's in a contract year, we might see playoff Jimmy during the regular season. When Butler is in peak form, he's a top 10 player in the NBA, and we saw that firsthand in the 2023 postseason, where he led his Miami Heat to the NBA Finals, beating the Bucks, Knicks, and Celtics, while averaging 26.9 points, 6.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, with 1.8 steals on 46% shooting. A motivated Jimmy Butler all throughout the regular season could spell trouble for the rest of the Eastern Conference, as if Miami can also remain healthy for the majority of the season, they might even be good enough to be out of the play-in tournament entirely, but we'll get into that later in the video. Now, the third reason why the Miami Heat will be title contenders this season is because of the offense they now have in the backcourt. Between Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier, the offensive issues Miami had been having over the past couple of seasons might have just been resolved. Hero was injured for the most part of last season, only playing in 42 games. However, in that time, he was great, putting up 20 points, 5.3 rebounds, 4.5 assists, with shooting splits of 44, 39, and 85. His offensive game is a well-rounded one, ranking in the 93rd percentile for shot quality, 89th in creation, which is how many open shots he creates for his teammates, and in the 90th percentile for offensive load. Overall, Tyler Hero ranks in the 83rd percentile as an offensive player, which is nothing to scoff at. Now moving on to Terry Rozier, the Heat Heat traded for him at the deadline, parting ways with Kyle Lowry. Before Terry Rozier headed to the Heat, he was putting up 23.2 points, 6.6 assists, and 1.1 steals with shooting splits of 45, 35, and 84. But once he arrived in Miami, he went through a shooting slump and struggled to get used to the new system. And right when it felt like Terry was getting settled in, he suffered a season-ending neck injury. So along with a hopefully healthy season, along with a full off-season with the squad, Terry could come in all guns blazing next season, potentially being the second or third option on offense, giving the Heat another star shot creator on offense. Rozier ranks in the 77th percentile as an overall offensive player, led by his 91st ranking for creation, 92nd in offensive load, and 86th in shot quality. Overall, a backcourt of Hero and Rozier might have defensive limitations, but offensively, they'll be able to pick up the slack if Jimmy and Bam are having off shooting nights. The fourth reason why the Heat will be great this season is because of their depth. Off the bench, Miami will have a plethora of solid NBA players, even though they just lost Caleb Martin to free agency. With Kevin Love, Duncan Robinson, Nikola Jovic, Josh Richardson, the rookie Kel'el Ware, Haywood Highsmith, Alec Burks, and Jaime Jaquez, Miami aren't short for talent. But to understand just how talented they are, let's dive into each player. First, let's start with Kevin Love, who even though he's in the twilight of his career, is still more than capable to be an NBA role player. On offense, Love ranks in the 87th percentile, led by his great three-point shooting, smart shot quality, his above-average passing ability, and just how portable he is. As you could play Kevin Love alongside nearly any other four players in the NBA, and he would make it work. When we look at his defense, he's a solid rim protector, ranking in the 71st percentile for rim defense, while even at his old age, he is still elite when it comes to defensive rebounds, which he does in the 98th percentile, which is good enough to still rank in the 72nd percentile as an overall defensive player. Then for Duncan Robinson, his trait is obviously on offense, and by offense, I mean his three-point shooting, as Robinson has shot 40% from three over the course of his career. However, it's his defense that has noticeably improved since he first came to the league. Robinson ranks in the 86th percentile for forced turnovers, and because of his 6'6" frame, he's actually a versatile defender, ranking in the 69th percentile, which is then good enough to see him rank in the 58th percentile as an overall defensive player, which is slightly above average. But if we take it back to his offense, that is of course his calling card, as he ranks in the 100th percentile for shot quality, 92nd for three-point attempts, 79th for true shooting percentage, and again his 6'6" frame allows him to be an extremely portable offensive player, ranking in the 96th percentile, which is good enough to then see him rank in the 74th percentile for an overall offensive player. After not seeing the floor very much in year one, Nikola Jovic actually broke into the starting lineup for the Heat last season, and he did this because of his solid two-way play. On offense, he's a solid three-point shooter, as he shot 40% from three on 5.5 attempts per game, while also being a portable offensive player, which is due to his mobility at 6'9". But his defense was perhaps where he was actually a better player, ranking in the 83rd percentile for forced turnovers, and also 83rd for defensive versatility, giving him an overall rating in the 87th percentile. Either being in the starting lineup again or coming off the bench, Jovic, similar to a Kevin Love, is just super versatile and can give you basically anything on the floor. Although I would like to see him drive to the basket more and use that 6'9" frame, as often defenses were guarding him with a guard and were just able to run him off the three-point line and force him to pass the ball. Now moving on to Josh Richardson, who is just a solid guy to have off the bench, as he can play good defense and offense, providing Miami with another good two-way player. But it's rookie Kel'el Ware that is turning heads. As being an athletic center standing at 7 foot flat, he looks like he has the tools to be a solid defensive player one day. But nobody expected him to be shooting threes already. But that's exactly what happened in the first preseason game against the Hornets, as he was able to show off his range, knocking down a triple, as he finished the game with 13 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and 4 blocks on 55% shooting only in 16 minutes. Ware has a real chance to win the Rookie of the Year, and if he's able to play like this in limited minutes off the bench for Miami this season, season, he would be an invaluable addition to this Heat squad. Now let's talk about Haywood Highsmith, who has proven to be a solid two-way player for the Heat, even starting in 26 games last season. With these extra minutes, he was able to shoot 40% from 3 on 3 attempts per game while maintaining his defensive presence. Defense is his calling card, as he ranks in the 79th percentile as an overall defensive player, which is due to his versatility ranking in the 93rd percentile, his block percentage ranking in the 68th percentile, he ranks 78th for rim defense, and in the 81st percentile for deflections. With all this in mind, Haywood Highsmith fits the bill for the kind of NBA player everyone's looking for right now, which is somebody who can lock up on one end and space the floor on the other. The addition of Alec Burks is one that kind of went under the radar over the offseason, but he is a great pickup nonetheless. With the Knicks, he wasn't getting any minutes in the postseason, but due to injuries that the team sustained in the second round series versus Indiana, Coach Tibbs tossed him into the action and he didn't disappoint. Over his 6 games in the playoffs, Alec Burks was able to give the Knicks 14.8 points on 50% shooting from the field, 42% from 3, and 84% from the free throw line. To not get any playoff reps at all, to then be thrown into the deep end and not just float but swim is super impressive. As if the Heat get into a situation where they need him to step up and play big minutes, they can count on him to perform. But finally, let's talk about Jaime Jaquez Jr., who had a great rookie season, putting up 11.9 points, 3.8 rebounds, 2.6 assists, with 1 steal, shooting 48% from the floor. For Jaquez, he's an all-round solid player, as he is another versatile 6'6" wing that the Heat have on their roster. His 3-ball though wasn't very good last season, but for a rookie, his defense was pretty damn good, ranking in the 66th percentile for deflections, and because of his 6'6" frame, he has the tools to one day become an extremely versatile defender also. But what really stood out about Jaime Jaquez was just how poised he looked as a rookie. His footwork, basketball IQ, and overall calmness on the court is something we don't usually see from young players, let alone rookies. He's able to have these traits because of the 4 seasons he spent in college playing for UCLA, which taught him how to play the game of basketball. We often see this with guys who spend extra seasons in college. Take Herb Jones of the New Orleans Pelicans for example, as they just seem like they know how to play the game way better than the rookies who only spend 1 season or don't go to college at all. So with more minutes for Jaime Jaquez under his belt, there's no doubt that he's just going to get better and better, and the Heat will need him to if they are to contend for a title. But now that we have all the facts out of the way, it's time to draw some conclusions about the Miami Heat in season 2025. When you look around at the rest of the Eastern Conference, it's definitely stronger than it was 2 seasons ago when Miami made the NBA Finals. But the important thing to remember is they're still beatable. The Sixers and Bucks have injury-prone players who often miss time in the postseason, which could make them very beatable. And the Boston Celtics have often struggled against this exact Miami Heat team in the postseason. And when you look at the rest of the postseason teams in the Eastern Conference, I truly believe that the Heat could be better than these teams. Those teams are the New York Knicks, the Indiana Pacers, the Orlando Magic, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the potential playoff teams such as Charlotte if LaMelo stays healthy, and Atlanta if Trae can be healthy too. For me, when I'm looking at the Eastern Conference, I believe the Miami Heat are the 5th best team in the East, behind Boston, New York, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. But if Miami are able to maintain health, I truly believe that they might just skip the play-in tournament this season and be straight into the playoffs, something we haven't seen since 2022 when they were the 1 seed. But that's just my take. How good do you think this Miami Heat team is, and do you think they have what it takes to beat any of the contending teams in the Eastern Conference in a playoff series? Let me know in the comments below.